Good afternoon. In this short tutorial, we're going to go over how to texture map pearls to get a more realistic looking pearl, as well as touching base on how to adjust the GemVision gem colors so you can more accurately represent the gems that you actually have on hand for color. And then we'll also be learning how to save those colors, gem colors, so you can then have a nice pretty button in your V-Ray render builder for later that you can just push on and always apply that particular color. Alright, so let's get started. I have got a model out here right now, a very beautiful pendant designed by Jennifer Jenkins in Massachusetts, and she was kind enough to allow me to use this for the demonstration. Very, very pretty pendant. Kudos to her. Thank you. Anywho, alright, so we've got a pearl out here. I'm going to turn off all these other material layers that I've got first just to get them out of my way. Oh, I turned off the wrong one. Alright, so here's the stone that's going to represent our pearl. Okay, and we know that if we apply a standard white pearl material and we render it, give it a second here to grab that, and let me do that again, but let me throw my ground plane back down and select the correct viewport. There we go. These pearls don't look realistic, not even close, and that is not a fault of the material or our trying to get it right. It's a falling in V-Ray itself. They don't allow us to do the linear fall-offs like we were able to do in Flamingo, and thus this is what we get. We're going to make real looking pearls. Alright, so sometimes when rendering pearls and using our stock pearls, the pearls will just disappear. And this happens from time to time. We don't really have a good explanation for that one, but what you can do in order to fix that is if you come here to this very first button in your V-Ray render builder and click it, it brings up your material editor. If you find anything in here that says pearl, all three of these are used in some way to make that pearl material. So if you go in and you delete, 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 close this out, then go ahead and reapply the material, it will render. Don't know why, don't have an explanation for it, but this is just the way to get around that if that ever happens to you. And boom, our ugly pearl again. Alright, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to get rid of all of those materials as I don't want them around. Won't need them at all. Okay, so let me turn off my ground plane. Let's go ahead and highlight our pearl. What we'll be doing Control T as in Tom. That will bring up a little properties box on that particular object. Right over here there is a drop down menu, and we're going to drop that down and we're going to select texture mapping. Okay. When you open that up the first time, this is how it's going to look. We're going to click on the show advanced UI, and then we're going to add channel 1, which is what it automatically is going to throw up there as the number 1. Now a little ways down here, you're going to see where it says surface. We're going to change that to planar. And then we are going to click on the show mapping button. And you'll notice you get this little dotted lined square that comes out around your pearl. This is going to represent where our picture is actually going to physically lay, because we're going to lay a picture over the top of this. And let's see here, the picture we are going to drop over this is this right here. You notice when you look at this that you've got the pearl in the center and you got all this black around the outside. Okay, now imagine the constraints of this photo being the dotted lines here, your mapping widget. So you're going to want to make that mapping widget bigger than your actual piece so you don't end up with any of this black stuff in the picture. Okay, so let me close that out. And I'm going to leave it as it is just for the moment, and we're going to go ahead and create our material. So we're going to click on the material editor, and we're going to go to the default material, and we're going to rename that. So we right click and rename, and we're going to call this Pearl. You can call it whatever you want. And then we're going to go to the diffuse option here, and we're going to click on this little M next to color. So if we click on that, you get this little texture editor box pops up, and where it says type, we're going to click that drop down, and we're going to go to bitmap. And we want to make sure that texture is selected, and that it says explicit map channel, and the map channel is 1. That's what we have set for our Pearl. Then over here in the bitmap section, we will again click on the small m, and we're going to surf to where we have the picture saved of the Pearl. I actually happen to have it on my desktop at the moment. And we're going to click OK. If you hit update, you'll see that picture show up in the little update box. If you click apply, alright, and I'm going to close this out. Now in the looking down viewport, I'm going to go ahead and just render that up no, let me pull back this out. Highlight your Pearl, and then come back over to your material editor and right click and apply materials to object. Now we'll close it out and render it. And you'll see, without adjusting the mapping widget, what we get. Looks like an eye. But that's because it's fitting it exactly the way that we're telling it to. Alright, so we need to stretch this out. So we'll grab hold of that mapping widget, and we will 2D transform that. Apologize, I've got all my other menus off screen so I can show you as much of this as possible inside the viewports. So we're going to 2D transform from there, and let's start off with it at about that big. And you don't have to adjust anything else. This is going to adjust on the fly. It already knows that there's a material map there and that it needs to adjust itself to these constraints. So let's go ahead and render again. And we're getting closer. You can see we've got some black still on the back side of it. So we know that that side needs to come out further. So we'll 1D transform one side to the other. And I'm going to stretch it out a little bit more. And now I'm actually going to do the render in my perspective viewport so I can see underneath a little bit better. Okay, that looks good so far on that side. We'll come around to the other side here, and I'm going to actually be looking up partially from the underneath the ground plane. Coverage looks excellent. Alright, so that's how we map the material onto the Pearl. Okay. So, now let's pull out our ground plane. I'm going to pull out my gem that I'm using for an aquamarine. And we're gonna adjust that aquamarine color, so that's why I'm pulling it out next. And we're gonna render those two together, just so we can see what we were looking at. Okay, it's definitely a much nicer looking Pearl. I'm actually going to adjust that widget a little bit further. 'Cause we've got this white spot here. I want to stretch that out to cover a little bit further around. So to do that, I'm just going to again grab that mapping widget. I'm going to 1D transform, and I'm just going to stretch it a little further that way. Now the aqua, the reason why we're going to change that is the aqua we have on hand that we're going to try to imitate is actually a better looking aqua than this one. I like the way that pearl looks. It actually has some graining to it and very realistic in my opinion. The aqua we have on hand that we're trying to imitate is actually a higher quality aqua than the render we have here. So we want to change the color to be a little bit deeper and more truer to the color that we've got. So, alright, so I want to play with this mapping widget one more time. Oops, no, we've got to 1D transform it from center. Oh. Alright, so if we go back to our material editor, I'm going to find my aquamarine material. Yours will just say aquamarine. I've already played a little bit with this guy, so forgive me. No, let me delete that and start off with a regular GemVision aquamarine to start off with. So I've got the aqua selected, and I'm going to apply it to that gem. And now we've got the aquamarine. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to change the IOR to a more realistic number, to the actual, which is 1.577 is the actual IOR, index of refraction, for an aquamarine. And we've got the color is applied to the stone right here under the refraction list. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a little bit of fog, and I'm going to start clicking over this direction here to change to a different blue. Then I'm going to grab this little dot and I'm going to drag it over to about right here. Click OK. And then go ahead and do the render in the looking down viewport. And let's see how that changes the color of that stone. It's definitely deeper, but it's a little bit too blue yet. So we'll close that out, reselect the aquamarine, click on our fog color because that was the part we changed, and I'm going to go further towards that white corner. Okay, I'll click OK and render it again, and let's see what we get this time. Okay, it's definitely lightening up, so I want to go a little bit more. A little bit of color really affects this drastically. Okay, so let's do that one. You can see your before and your after colors that you're choosing. I'm going to close that out. Looking down, viewport is active, and render. And that's pretty darn close to what I'm trying to achieve. Close enough that I feel I can go with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that render window, open up our material editor again, and now we're going to save this. If this is a color that you like and you want to have it again for future use, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this as I'm going to title it Good Aqua, to differentiate between bad aqua, light aqua, dark aqua is better, dark aquamarine. Then if we right click on this, we can export it. Export it to, I have my own little V-Ray folder that I've got set up where I export all my materials to, so I kind of suggest that. But for this example, I'm just going to export this to my desktop. Also makes it easier for me to find, and click Save. If we close this out now, and if we go up here back to our V-Ray render builder, and this little icon right here, this says Add Material to it when you mouse over. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And in here, you're going to see this right here, User Materials and a My Material. I've added folders to mine, so I'm going to select a folder to drop it into. You can either select your My Materials or you can create a folder for it to go into. But I'm going to select on my miscellaneous folder. Then I'm going to click on the little folder icon next to Fast. So we're going to follow Fast over and click on that folder. Now I'm going to surf to the location that I exported that material. Here it is right here. It's a Visimat. I'm going to click on that and open. It should come up and show you the name that you had already applied to it. Should. You can change that name at this point if you want to whatever you want it to be. Now we're going to come down here to Create Preview. And we're going to click on that button. And we're going to select Gem. And of course, we're doing a gem. Now, if you've done a new metal material that you want to use the simple or the metal. The metal is going to have the ring that you see normally. I personally like the simple. Okay, so we're selecting the gem and click OK. Don't freak out. This is going to change your screen for a moment. It'll go back to what it was. And it's going to render that gem in a little head just like all of the matrix gems are set. Once that's set up and you like the way it looks, you can go ahead and click Save. You should get a little pop-up that says Material Saved. And click OK. Now, back up here at the top menu bar, you want to click on this icon that has a little folder, and that puts you back to your selectors. And if you come down and surf all the way down this list and you find your user materials, and again I put mine in my miscellaneous folder, there's our aquamarine. And now if you click on it when it's down here, you get to see a bigger preview of it. And now you can select that gem and apply. And you'll always have that one exactly that way for you for next time. Excellent. And we'll re-render just to see it. And you can adjust any of your materials this way, or you can add materials the same way. If you happen to find a Visimat online, you can try to add it this way. Although, keep in mind, not all the materials you find online or at the ASGViz website will work this way. Some of them you just have to add through the material editor. Alright, so let's say that we get ready to do the actual render now. So, let me pull out the rest of this stuff. I'm going to position my perspective the way I'm going to render that one when I do it. That's how it's going to look. Right there. Position my looking down. Okay. I don't often apply a ground plane material because I happen to like the flat white that comes out and results from not doing that. And then we'll select an environment. So let's see here, HDRI environments. I'm partial to the light box. And we're going to do the looking down viewport first. I'm going to render this and go on pause. This will take a little bit to render. Okay, and I've already applied all my other materials. I'm using a platinum material and a diamond material. Alright, let's click render and I'm going to go on pause and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so render's done now. You can see it took not too terribly long. 2.5 minutes. Colors look great. Rendered that with a platinum material, so that looks good. Alright, let's go ahead and see how that looks from the other direction, from our perspective viewport. And again, pause. Okay, now this one's done. This one here, just changing that angle and zooming in on it, changed my render time to just a hair under 10 minutes. Alright, so let's see. Everything looks good, but you know, I'm still really not 100% happy with that pearl. But part of that's got to be is the shadowing of my environment. So another way you can help edit that up a little bit, let's go back to your material editor. We're going to pick our pearl material and we put that up underneath our diffuse. So we'll click on that M again. We can change this multiplier, hit update so we can see what we're looking at. If you play with this multiplier right here and go up in number, if I take that up to a 2, it's actually going to make the whole thing brighter. Now that's too bright. I'm going to take it up to 1.25, and that should adjust what I'm seeing. So I'll go ahead and apply. Alright, so we'll do one more render on this, and I'll go ahead and call this to an end. And I'll do that in the looking down viewport. And I'll be right back. Okay, render is done. You can see where the pearl has been lightened up. I like that so much better. Alright, so this has been a rather lengthy tutorial. And here again what we learned how to do was how to texture map a pearl material onto a sphere to imitate the pearl or give us a better looking pearl. We also learned how to adjust the standard GemVision gem colors and then how to save them again so you can use them in the future. And then we rendered up this piece a couple times. When it comes time to actually go after pearl materials, one of two things you can do. You can either do a search online, either through Google, Bling, or whatever your preferred search engine happens to be, and find an image that you're looking for. Keep in mind when you do that, you're going to want to look for a fairly high-res image. If it's a small little thumbnail size image, it's going to pixelate when you do this. So you want to find the higher res image you find, the better. Or you can actually use your own photos. If you have a nice camera that you can sit there and get a good shot of the colored pearl that you want to use, there's no reason why you cannot use that. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much.